Untitled Podcast is a part of the Kansas Google Education Group Network and also the Mace Kansas Network. You can find more information about episodes and guests at www.untitledpc.net. Welcome to Untitled Podcast. My name is Travis True.
And I'm Carol Nelson. Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Untitled Podcast. Today, we have Dr. Amanda Harrison with us. Amanda, it's great to have you. Would you just go ahead and start us off and introduce yourself and give the listeners a little bit of your journey in education and how you've ended up where you are now?
Okay, well, I have been in education since 2006. I'm currently the K-12 librarian at McPherson, Kansas. Love that. It's an amazing job. Definitely recommend it. But before 2006, I had never considered being a librarian. It was kind of funny experience. I was in Chicago. I had just finished a master's degree at the University of Chicago, and I just needed a break from school and wanted to do Teach for America. Thought that would be a great opportunity. And in Teach for America, they send you out to interviews in different places. So I was expecting to teach in the classroom, and I got a phone call back from one of my interviews, and they said, "Hey, we think you would be great as a librarian." And it was just so funny that I had never thought of that, because now I think, well, of course, obviously this is the perfect job for me. But, I guess it took someone else to see that. So I became probably the only librarian that did Teach for America at the same time in Chicago, and was there for 4 years, I think, in a charter school network. The charter school network opened a new school in St. Louis, so I took that opportunity, moved to St. Louis, and was at first a fourth grade teacher there. I had moved to be their librarian at their school. But the very first year, they did not have money for a library at all. It was kind of, a charter school starting from the ground up. So the principal and I did a lot of grant writing that year, and we opened a library the next year with some grant funds from the Missouri Department of Education. So that was really exciting, but I am from Kansas originally, and so after 3 years in St. Louis, my husband and I moved back to Kansas, and I guess the rest is history.
So with librarians and media specialists, you really help with getting people connected with digital information and other information, but nowadays, especially digital information nowadays. So what challenges have emerged in the last year and a half with getting access to that kind of information? And also, on the other hand, what are some benefits or solutions that have come about because of COVID and remote learning and those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think that this is a really interesting topic, because I think sometimes people put librarianship in a box. Like, they might say, oh, librarianship, that's just about books and reading books for fiction and for fun and learning to read in that process. And since I was an elementary librarian for a really long, just an elementary librarian for a really long time, that was kind of the box people wanted to put me in. But there is so much that librarians have always done with digital literacy and technology, because we know that, when I was a kid, you'd go to the library and you'd learn how to read the atlas, or you'd go how to, find something in an almanac, or, do the card catalog, and all that stuff is online. So I think that while this year has obviously been really unprecedented, it is definitely just kind of a trend that we've seen, going back from when I was a kid to now, is that things just becoming more and more and more online. And honestly, I think it's kind of exciting because, well, obviously, there's a lot of things that we would love to do in person and the things that we miss being in person. There's so many things I've taken advantage of, or I've been able to have kids take advantage of this year that were virtual that we never could have done if we had to physically go that place. We did virtual field trips with the Smithsonian. I couldn't take a class of kids to the Smithsonian. We did a field trip that was in Emporia, Kansas, where we had kids connect virtually. And, those kids, they wouldn't all have had a chance to go to Emporia for those experiences. So now, of course, with all these exciting things is we know that there's a digital divide still. And we know there's people that don't have access to, reliable internet. I understand. I live in the country. There are times that I go do Zoom at, our church office, or I go, to somewhere else because I just know my Zoom connection's not going to be the best. Also, I think we've really seen just some issues in terms of people knowing how to navigate the digital world. I mean, it's one thing to have access to the internet, but if you don't have those skills of how to troubleshoot your computer when it's not working, or, just that level of frustration if things aren't happening the way you want it to, and knowing kind of what's the next step, that's really huge. And I think that's something I haven't really seen talked about as much, of just that knowing how to navigate the digital world and troubleshoot things as well. So did that answer your question? I feel like I went on a long circular tangent, and I'm not sure if I...
Yeah, I think so. I think what's interesting is I think we've been aware of some of those things that you've mentioned, the field trips, the different aspects, but that's kind of in a way forced us to have to really explore those a little bit more. And it opened our eyes, I think, a little bit more to those possibilities. And so those are definitely good things that have come, that we've explored those more, used them more, and it allowed our students to be a part of those worlds, like you said, that we just can't physically travel to sometimes. And it's really, really cool aspects. And the digital divide is a big thing that I think it's opened our eyes to as well during this time. So definitely a challenge, and probably a challenge that we're still exploring. And like you said, just the training of students and families, how to deal with, computers and all those pieces. So yeah, I think you've done a great job. And as I introduced you, it was fun to introduce you as doctor. We work together, so I haven't gotten to introduce you as doctor yet, and that's pretty recent. Tell us a little bit, because you said out of the box as you were talking about some things earlier. Your dissertation's a little bit maybe out of the box for some of us. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Okay, so, well, I always had known I wanted to continue my education. So I started a doctoral program in librarianship and information services through Emporia State University, which is here in Kansas. And one part of that experience, we had got to take a trip to Serbia and meet with librarians there and talk to them about, their challenges, what was going well, what was not going well. And it was just an amazing experience because, here's this little country that I knew very little about, who is just rocking librarianship. I mean, they have programs, they have meetings, they have such an engaged group of people that use their services, that it was just kind of awesome to me to see how they did that. And one of the ways they really talked about was just all the different ways that they are connected with not just people in Serbia, but with people around the world and in Europe for professional development and professional learning. And so I was just really interested in kind of how that took place, maybe a little bit of how we could leverage that kind of connection here in Kansas, even though here we are in the middle of the United States, like smack dab. And, how could we use that kind of idea of the professional learning community to really expand what we know? So I interviewed Serbian librarians. So do I tell my dissertation title? Goodness, it's been so long. The impact of the network society on the professional identity of Serbian librarians. So it was really very library specific, but it's funny. I finished that last March as things were kind of blowing up in the world, and but it's interesting to see how that's expanded. It's like suddenly all us teachers were thinking, what do we do next? How do we teach these kids online? So it was really kind of like I just finished talking about online professional learning communities, and then it was like everyone needed one today. So it was kind of an interesting segue. So it's something I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll explore some more as I continue to grow and learn as an educator.
So staying on the topic with your meeting and learning from those librarians across the globe, talk about the role of a librarian kind of at a 30,000 foot view of education and a global, that global view of education, and what should be the role of a librarian? Why is it important to have that person involved with the overall program or education program for students?
Yeah, I think that librarianship, when you're saying look from above, I almost feel like kind of that's our role. It's kind of from above in terms of, here's a student who's going to English, they're going to math, they're going to science, they're going to social studies, but when it comes out, you want them to be that well-rounded adult who can continue to be the lifelong learner. We know that as educators, we cannot prepare kids for everything they're going to face in their life or every, thing that they need to know. So they need to have that experience of, okay, if I don't know and I don't have a teacher, how do I go find that information? Where is that going to be? And it might be in a library, it might be on a database that somebody has subscribed to. How are they going to find good, accurate information to continue to live and work and be, just a human in the 21st century? So I think that the library really offers that chance because we aren't focused on, this is the one true thing. It's more of, who are you? What are your interests? How do you learn? What interests, how do you find more things that interest you? What is it that you need to know?
And I think that that's it's important for students as well as teachers to know what kind of information you can help gather and what tools you have access to, because I think everybody thinks, oh, I can just Google and find the answer, and because of, you mentioned the databases that are part of the library system, and just the resources that about that maybe not the average teacher or student knows is very important. So I think that's another critical aspect too, is like you said, you're just there to support, and help find that information that normally you probably wouldn't find on a Google search. What about the role of the librarian in the context of digital citizenship?
Yeah, I think that kind of plays off what we were talking about with, you can't just do a Google search. I think being a digital citizen is part of it, is knowing, okay, what is this information that I'm getting? Where is it coming from? Is this person a person I can trust? Is this just complete, made up nonsense? How do I find that out? What do I look for to make that determination? I know that that's something that we've seen this past year is huge, especially when we're just kind of online all the time, is who do you trust and what are they saying? And also just being a good digital person. One of the huge things that I've answered questions about this year is copyright issues, because everything is now, online, going online, shared online. I've had a ton of questions about, okay, I want to read this book online to my students. Is that copyright? Is that something I can do? I want to put it on YouTube. I want to copy this thing that another teacher has given. That's a huge thing that maybe I should have got questions about before, but I've had a lot more questions about this year.
I think it brought to light that need, for sure. And that's been a huge resource, I think, this year, is just having that information for our teachers. And any information you have that you want us to post to, we have some show notes and resources that we share. I'm sure our listeners would appreciate any copyright, because I think that's an area that just we all struggle with really understanding well. And so I appreciate, I guess, from the library position, the partnership between tech and the things that you help and support. So switching gears just a little bit, because Travis and I are pretty tech nerdy, and we like to ask people what tech tools they like and use. So what would be your favorite tech tool?
I think the two things I've used this year more than ever is first, like the Loom instructional videos, because I love those. Those are free for educators. So what I like about those, if you aren't familiar with them, is that you can show your screen, but you can also show a little head of you doing it, so it just feels a little more friendly. People can kind of see you and your expressions as you're talking. So especially if you're interacting with people 100% virtually, it's just kind of nice to put a little bit of you in there. The other thing that teachers have just been wild about this year is the Bitmoji Classrooms, and they're just a lot of fun. We've been linking to them on our library page, and it's just been kind of a fun, different way to link students to different things. I make mine in Google Slides, but I think you could probably make them in a lot of different programs. And it's just been fun and easy, and it just looks like, wow, what did you put together here? But it really doesn't take too much time. And so we've been having a lot of fun with that, trying to recreate some of the things we would do, in person and making them virtual. So
our elementary music and PE teachers in Topeka Public Schools used Bitmoji Classrooms as part of their remote, because they didn't do daily lessons, so they would do the Bitmoji Classrooms and put link to this week's exercise video or this week's music lesson and different games and stuff. And I know the kids really like that, because it was, it's fun, it's cartoonish, it's something different, but it's really easy for teachers to manage too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so this is our last question, and we ask this for every one of our guests because and it's interesting to hear the different perspectives that people have, as we've all had to go through the same pandemic and deal with that over the course of the last just over a year. But what is something that you're going to take away from teaching or your library work during COVID that you're going to carry with you moving forward?
Wow, I think there's so many things, really. I think the one that kind of strikes me right now is just the sense of purpose, in terms of, we know that this is not the education program that we want to have happening. This is not the time, and, no one signed up for a pandemic, so we know that that's a challenge for everyone, but we're here to teach. We're here to teach kids. We're here to support each other. And I think that purpose it's really like, if one of my students has a drop Zoom, okay, you have a drop Zoom, just hop back on. If this computer doesn't work, okay, well, let's just try plan B. I think that there's just a understanding that, yeah, we're going to have to be flexible, but the point is that we need to get this thing done. So, just that sense of, okay, coming together for that, between teachers and students and librarians and the whole school. I think that there's just a little bit more closeness in terms of, all right, moving on. We got this. So
Yeah, I think it has highlighted how much we need each other and need to support each other for sure.
Well, Amanda, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. I've always had um, a lot of respect for librarians and what they do and how they help us, and I feel that they don't get used in a way that they should honestly get used. So sounds like you're doing great things in McPherson. If anybody wants to reach out and connect with you, how can they do that?
People are welcome to email me if they want. That is Amanda.Harrison@McPherson.com. That is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. I will say I am on social media platforms, but I'm not on there as consistently as probably some are. So if you tweet at me, I'm probably not going to notice. But
All right. Any final thoughts or comments before we end this episode?
just, if you have a local librarian and you have a question, you just go ask them. They are not too busy. That is what they're there for. They are excited and they will be overwhelmed with joy to answer and find whatever you need. So use them and yeah, keep up the good work.
All right. Well, thanks, Amanda, and thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.